My husband, Chris, 36, and I, female 33, planned a 1-week vacation to an out-of-state ski resort with our 2 little kids. His cousin, Martin, male 38, lost his wife to cancer 6 months ago. She left behind 2 kids nearly the same age as my kids. My husband is devastated by his friend's loss. They're so close that he sees him as a friend, understandably so. He tries to help Martin and the kids, but in my opinion, he's been doing a little too much for them lately. He suggested we take Martin's kids with us to the resort to get their minds off the grief a bit. I apologized and said it wouldn't work, since we barely have the budget to cover our kids. He insisted and then tried offering compromises, but I still said it wouldn't work. He was obviously angry, but dropped it eventually. 2 days before the trip, I found out that my husband had booked 2 tickets for Martin's kids instead of our own kids. I was the one paying, but he insisted on handling the booking and making reservations. I was stunned. I called him out on it, and he apologetically talked about how Martin needs some alone time away from the kids, how the kids need a breather, and how they need this vacation more than our kids do. I flipped out at him, asking if he was seriously okay with prioritizing other kids over his own. He said it wasn't about priorities, but doing what's needed to help those kids out. I asked how his own kids would react once they found out, but he said, "I'm sure they'd understand." I said no and decided to cancel the vacation altogether. He freaked out on me, saying that I can't do that and make him look small in front of his cousin and family since they praised him for this nice gesture. I refused to negotiate it, but he called me selfish and cruel towards grieving kids and said that he'd make sure our own kids know how I'm behaving towards the other kids by robbing them of the fun they so much need and deserve. We haven't been talking, and he's so angry and keeps throwing a fit after fit about it, claiming I ruined it for everybody when I canceled. I feel bad for the kids, I do, but I don't think what he did was right. Am I the idiot for canceling a vacation because my husband gave our kids tickets to his widowed cousin's kids? Not the idiot. This isn't about him caring for his friend's kids. Instead, he's using them to look like a big man and so charitable. If he was either of those things, he would have used his own money. This is about his image. What was his plan for the caretaking of your kids during the vacation? Last-minute babysitter paid by you? How exactly would one do that anyway? Mommy's bad because she won't let me leave you at home while we go on a trip with someone else's kids. He's spewing nonsense to get her to fund his own PR campaign. And let's not forget that using OP's money for other purposes is theft. OP, it's time to speak to a divorce attorney if he's going to try and weaponize your own children against you like that. Yeah, she was paying for the whole thing too. Nowhere in the post does it say he was willing to cover the cost of his cousin's kids. He initially wanted her to cover the 2 extra kids with no apparent contribution for him. When she said no, he essentially scammed her. Tell your husband to stay home with his cousin's kids while you take your kids on vacation. Don't cancel your plans because of your husband's need to feel like the hero. He's free to have your cousin's kids for that week at your home so his cousin can have some alone time. And you can go away on your planned vacation with your children. Everybody wins. This is gold. It is actually a compromise. If the husband's true goal is to give everyone a breather, this accomplishes said goal beautifully. Think about everything your husband has done for your family and if he will ever prioritize your family. If the answer is no, think if this will be good for your kids and their future. Good luck, OP. I, 27 female, have been dating my boyfriend, 28, for a little over 2 years now, and I'm 7 months pregnant. Last week we went to his sister's wedding. I'm not super close with most of his family, but we grew up in the same town, so I knew many of the people at the wedding. I haven't told a lot of people about my pregnancy. I've had a lot of anxiety about miscarrying throughout it, so we decided only to tell close friends and family. When I post on social media, I wear baggy clothes and pose to hide my bump. I wore a loose-fitting dress to the wedding, but it was still very obvious that I was pregnant. Because I've been keeping my pregnancy pretty hidden, it was a lot of people's first time seeing me pregnant, and I had people coming up to me pretty much all night congratulating me. I could tell my sister was upset about it, so I tried to downplay it when people came over, but there wasn't much I could do about it. The day after the wedding, my boyfriend's mom called him angry that I wouldn't say anything to people beforehand because I took the attention away from his sister all night. I feel bad for his sister, but I don't think I should have to make a pregnancy announcement before I'm ready, and I'm not sure how I could have told people beforehand, aside from calling up the entire guest list, which is just ridiculous. My boyfriend is on my side, but his mom, sister, and apparently a lot of his other family members are upset with me. Am I the idiot? Edit to clarify, the bride knew. Everyone's immediate family knew about it. Close friends knew about it. My boyfriend and I grew up in the same town, and we went to the same high school, but we didn't start dating or even really become friends until after we graduated college. Many wedding guests knew us, but we hadn't seen them in years. We kept it a secret until we made it to 20 weeks. Only immediate family and a few friends knew. And since then, it's been more like we haven't been going out of our way to tell people. This expectation that people notice nothing in the world aside from the bride for the entire day because, let's face it, no one ever cares if the groom gets attention, is ridiculous. The bride can't be talking to everyone at once, but apparently, when she's not talking to people, they should all be staring adoringly at her and whispering to each other about how wonderful she is. Not the idiot. It's not like you made a big announcement. She invited you, and you just existed as a pregnant person. If she can't handle your existence at the expense of her fragile little ego, why did she let you come to start with? This notion of stealing attention away from the bride just because you have a congratulatory conversation with someone else is so absurd. People do not spend the entirety of wedding receptions just following the bride with their eyes. Yes, the couple is the focus during the ceremony and pivotal moments of the reception, but otherwise you're just eating and mingling and catching up with the people you haven't seen in a while. This theme of insecure and fragile brides needing to be the center of attention at apparently every moment is pathetic. Everyone will remember this as a wedding day, not as a pregnancy coming out moment. OP doesn't owe anyone a baby announcement. She's told both the immediate families and her close friends. So what else should she have done? Submitted it to her high school class notes? Taken out an ad in the local paper? Facebook isn't entitled to our life announcements. People with whom we're not in touch are not entitled to our life announcements. And an anxious pregnant woman should not be socially required to announce her pregnancy to acquaintances for the comfort of someone else. So my parents broke up before I was born. They weren't married or anything like that either. I'm not sure of all the details, but what I do know is my dad settled down with my stepmom when I was 3, and my mom was not my stepmom's biggest fan. I know she made life difficult for them. I know she was jealous about my stepmom being introduced into my life while I was so young, but mom had primary custody of me back then and had it until I was 7 when I wanted more time with my dad, which she agreed to. I only know of the bad blood because of my stepmom. She would talk a lot about how possessive my mom was of me, how jealous she was, and how she had treated them badly. I was even shown some of the stuff my mom had written to her. It annoyed me to be told because I had no idea my mom felt this way. She was willing to let me spend more time at my dad's, which meant less time with her. She would let me call my dad or other paternal family members while I was with her. I can't say she didn't mistreat my stepmom. There's proof of that. But honestly, that doesn't change how I feel about my mom. I did choose to live with her full time again when I was 9 because I hated being around my stepmom's constant need to bring up stuff to me. She tried to use me as a go-between, and Dad wasn't great about stopping her. I'm a senior in high school right now, and my dad and stepmom keep talking about how I'll graduate in May next year and how excited they are. I'm going to graduate older than I should have because I got really sick in 2018, 2019, and had to repeat it. It was tough, and that made their talk even worse. My stepmom has told me that she doesn't feel comfortable with my mom being there after everything, and that she thinks I should be at a point where I help protect them from someone who has caused so much heartache. I told her my mom would be there because I love my mom and want her to watch me graduate. Stepmom told me I needed to look at the bigger picture. I told her I didn't care what my mom had done to her, that she was still my mom and I still loved her. She told me I would make the day very difficult for her, and that as my parent, she would hope that I'd want to make it easy for her. I told her she didn't have to come if she expected to be treated as the most important person there. She couldn't talk, and I continued by telling her that I would never pick her over my mom, and that she needed to learn to accept that. She told me to get out of her face. My dad was cranky about the whole thing too. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Regardless of how your mom felt or acted towards your stepmom, she never forced that view on you or even told you about it. Your stepmom doing this is highly toxic and manipulative, especially given the young age you were when she started doing so. Tell her the only person causing drama is her, and if she can't put everything aside to just be there and support you on your day, she shouldn't bother attending at all. Exactly this. It seems like the stepmom is the toxic one, engaging in parental alienation. None of this should have even been told to a child. At least the mom left the child out of adult matters. I wonder if it's even possible that the trouble your mother caused was because your stepmother was overstepping too early, and your mother was just trying to make sure she didn't lose you. I'm just speculating. OP, this woman doesn't care two bits about you. She only wants to one-up your mother and hurt her by taking over what's left of her, her daughter. Your father also supports this expedition fueled by hate and manipulation. To conclude, they're not good people. Your mother's definitely a better one. Have a happy graduation with your mom and cut off your stepmom if possible. All the best. My husband's brother, both 30s male, was adopted at birth. My husband is younger and was not adopted. Their older sister is also biologically related. Our families have been friends since I was a kid, so I've always known that my brother-in-law is adopted. Brother-in-law doesn't like to talk about being adopted. He's never had an interest in knowing anything about his birth parents and shares many of the same physical features as my husband and his parents, so no one ever questions if he was adopted. Because brother-in-law doesn't like the topic, no one ever brings it up. Brother-in-law met his wife, my sister-in-law, in their 20s. When they first started dating, she made a couple of comments about some physical attributes between the three siblings that made it seem like she didn't know he was adopted. I didn't say anything because it didn't seem like a big deal, and it's not my information to share. Both sister-in-law and I are struggling to get pregnant now. We were on a hike, just us two, and she commented that maybe it's not us and our husbands that have some shared genetics that's the problem. I made a surprised look when she said that. She asked me about what the look was about, and instead of saying it was nothing, I told her it wasn't my place to discuss it, and she should talk to brother-in-law. After we went home, I got some furious texts from brother-in-law that I should not have even indicated that he wasn't biologically related to his family, and that sister-in-law was upset. Sister-in-law texted me, upset that we all knew and that she didn't know he was adopted and didn't say anything. She said she didn't care that he was adopted, but felt like an idiot that everyone knew but her, and that I should have just told her years ago. My husband says I should have just stayed out of it and followed sister-in-law's suggestion that it was a shared biological problem. My sister-in-law is mad that no one told her, especially me since we are now friends. My brother-in-law's angry that I told his secret. I'm getting blamed for holding a secret that wasn't mine to share. Am I really the idiot here? I didn't mean to expose my brother-in-law's adoption, but I felt a little cornered. Edit. I thought she would have figured it out within the last 5 years because our husbands are less than 5 months apart in age. That's also why I think I looked surprised. Less than 5 months apart in age? Is your sister-in-law clueless? Or did your brother-in-law lie to her about his birthday? Maybe your sister-in-law is unaware of your brother-in-law's birth year. She couldn't be that unaware. It's just hard for me to believe this. Well, your brother-in-law should have told his wife the truth before they were married. He doesn't need to tell the world, but a spouse should know these things. Hopefully your brother-in-law cools down and forgives you, but you're still not the idiot. Both brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and husband blame you for something realistically brother-in-law's fault. I 100% understand being private and not wanting to discuss certain aspects of your life, but you've been with someone for 5 years, married them, and are now trying to start a family with them. You need to tell them certain things, because both as a sign that you trust them with the information, and because the information has real-world implications, i.e., not being able to get pregnant easily. She should have known sooner, and you were correct to say that it wasn't your place to tell her. Also, as an adoptee, I would be concerned about the medical history of the biological family. It makes me wonder if brother-in-law's been lying to her about these things to cover it up. But was your brother-in-law an affair baby? Could that even be why everyone looks similar and your brother-in-law doesn't want to talk about it? Secrets can destroy trust, but getting them out can be healing. Just a random thought and possibly too much TV. He's not an affair baby. When I was a teenager, my husband and I were looking for something else in his mom's office and found the adoption file. I'm ashamed to say we read it. Both birth parents were listed in it. We never told anyone, including brother-in-law, that we found the file and read it. Still regret snooping it to this day. So, in my neighborhood, the houses are built sort of like a sandwich. So there's my house, my driveway, a shared hedge and fence, my neighbor's driveway, and then his house. I hope that's clear. My neighbor has 2 kids, each of whom has their own car. So they have 4 cars and my family has 2. There is no street parking, and our driveways lead to detached garages. His kid has the bad habit of parking in my driveway when I'm not home. He can park between our houses and walk to his side entrance. I'm sort of done asking him not to do this, but I'm not calling law enforcement or towing him. I didn't want grief in the neighborhood. Yesterday, he did it again, so I parked behind him and went for a bike ride. When I got back, I noticed that the hedge was torn up. It was kind of hard to miss. I guess what happened is after he got home, everyone else left. I have no idea why he didn't call a cab or an Uber. What he did instead was drive over the hedge between our driveways. These aren't little raspberry brambles. These are 30-year-old hedges. Anyway, his dad is sitting there looking at the hedge. He asked me if I know what happened. I said, come over for a beer and we can check my surveillance. So now the kid is angry because he has to pay to replace the hedge, and his car's all scratched up. I guess he had been warned he would be fired if he was late for work again. So the kid thinks I'm the idiot for blocking him in on purpose, which I guess I did. But the consequences were completely unintended. I was planning on moving the car to let him out when I got home. He could have called an Uber. Heck, he could have called in sick. Am I the idiot? I said, come over for a beer and we can check my surveillance. Not the idiot, and you deserve a medal for this line. The neighbor kid parked on your property. On top of it, damaged something, and had the audacity to be angry to be held accountable for his actions. Well, welcome to adulthood. Yeah, OP handled this like a champ, but I guarantee your neighbor will not pay you enough for your 30-year-old hedges. You need a good lawyer. You said you don't want neighborhood drama, but they brought it to you in the form of possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars in financial loss to restore your hedge. My husband, Jaden, 26, loves jokes and pranks and stuff. I'm not one for them and find most of them dumb, but our daughter, Lucy, kindergartner, loves them. They do a bunch of stupid pranks on each other, and to be fair, Jaden does keep it harmless. Last month, we got some realistic-looking spider toys and other decorations. Since we got them, Jaden and Lucy have taken turns putting them around the house to scare each other, or me. I honestly find it annoying, but the two of them love it. Lucy does usually get scared, but when she realizes what it is, she laughs and finds it funny, or tells her dad off. It's actually adorable when she tells him off, though. Jaden pretends he's scared even when she gives it away beforehand by giggling and watching him. So, about 2 weeks ago, Jaden set it to fall on her when she opened her toy box in the playroom. Unfortunately, Lucy didn't open it, and apparently he had forgotten it. Later that week, we had my family over, including my brother Leon and my nieces, Tara, toddler, and Zoe, young child, over. Zoe was badly bitten by a spider when she was younger and even had to go to the hospital. Since then, she's been deathly afraid of them. I would go so far as to call it a phobia. The kids went to play and the spiders fell on them. Zoe completely freaked out and just melted down. We came down and saw what had happened. Jaden did apologize and tried to cheer her up, but Leon was furious. He basically accused us of doing it on purpose, saying that we should know better and just calling us idiots. We apologized and explained that it wasn't meant for Zoe, but my brother didn't listen to him. Leon left early with my sister-in-law and nieces, and the whole night was kind of ruined. I've tried to talk to him after, but Leon is still angry with us. It's been a week and he's still acting like we tried to murder Zoe. I've tried explaining again that it was an accident and a mistake, but he basically thinks it's too convenient a mistake, and that if it is, Jaden's still an idiot for being so immature, and I'm an idiot for defending him. So now he refuses to see us unless Jaden is banned, which is ridiculous. I do feel bad that it went so wrong, and I understand that it was a horrible mistake, but it wasn't meant to happen. It was meant to be for Lucy, who likes these stupid pranks. I think Leon is overreacting, and he thinks I just don't care about my niece. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Wait, he wants you to ban your husband from your house? How's that supposed to work? Hubby leaves the house whenever brother visits? He needs to get over himself. You have apologized. Let him be. When he gets his head out of his butt, he may come around. But until then, don't keep running up behind him, trying to make him forgive you. You said your piece. The next move is his. You are the idiot. So is your husband. Has your husband attempted a genuine, legitimate apology, like going out of his way to contact your brother's family and speaking like adults and owning up to his screw-up? Because there are mistakes, and there are screw-ups, like scaring a toddler with a phobia. Or has he just tried to have you bend it back into shape because he's your brother, and he should just have some sense of humor? It sounds like Jaden's always doing these pranks. Maybe everyone has been low-key annoyed for a long time, and this was the proverbial straw that broke the camel's back. Reading your story, it does give me pause that your daughter's telling him off, and you're just laughing and calling it cute. Does she really enjoy this, or is this something she's more or less forced into? People who are obsessed with pranks, like your husband, are exhausting. It sounds like your brother is sick of starring in a Jack A rerun every time he visits. So it's a pretty natural consequence that more and more people are going to distance themselves from you because of this. You are not the idiot for this specific incident, but you're kind of an idiot for making annoying pranks such a big part of your family identity. I'm 29 and my husband is 34. We have an infant daughter. I want to become a veggie mainly for environmental reasons. I've been considering doing this for some time, as meat production has a hugely negative effect. Having our daughters made me a bit more eco-conscious, as I'm afraid of the world she'll live in the future. I've been trying to reduce the meat in my diet for some time. My husband doesn't want to do this and complains whenever I cook a meatless meal. I am a stay-at-home mom and cook almost all of our meals. I've told him that I don't want to cook meat anymore, and that if he wants to eat it, he can cook it himself, and that he's lucky I'm cooking for him every day, whatever I cook. However, he says I should also at least cook meat and add this to the meal for him. He says I can't force him to change his diet and eat less meat, but I say that I'm not, as he can still cook meat for himself. He says it's unfair on him to force this major lifestyle change on him, and he thinks I'm being hypocritical and petty, not cooking meat anymore when I've eaten it all my life. He thinks it's silly for me to not cook meat for him if he's going to do it later, as I'm just saving him from cooking meat, and the amount of meat cooked will be the same. So he thinks the only result in this is me not doing something nice for him. But I think that doing that would be a massive inconvenience for me, and also it defeats the purpose of me becoming a veggie in the first place. So I do understand his point of view. He also is unhappy that I plan to cook veggie meals for our daughter, and thinks that it's unfair to force her into being a vegetarian. But again, I don't think that I am, as I don't plan on stopping her from eating meat in school, etc. What do you think about this? You are the idiot. You're the stay-at-home parent and you cook most of the meals. That's the setup that you and your husband have agreed to. So suddenly telling him he needs to cook his meals or go vegetarian is not reasonable. You're either passing off a duty that you used to do, cooking his meals, onto him without any discussion, or making him a vegetarian with you. You should care about him as much as you care about the earth. And your daughter has two parents. Both of you should have a say in the diet and mentality she's raised with. So raising your daughter vegetarian isn't your decision alone and is entirely unfair to your daughter. What if your husband says, "I make all the money, don't buy any food I don't approve of," or do you think he would be an idiot in that situation? Not the idiot. This is a division of labor problems and problem of compromise. It can only be decided if we know 100% of how you and your husband contribute to the relationship. However, you should 100% be able to not cook meat. I would still buy it for him. Maybe this means you do some chore of his as a trade, but is he even doing anything besides working? So far, your husband is an idiot for insisting on meat meals and acting like a baby when he sees some veggies, instead of appreciating a warm meal on the table for him. Agreed. He's not going to become sick of not eating less meat. Quite the opposite. He's not allergic to vegetarian food. He can still buy himself meat and eat anything he wants. You're also not his maid, OP. Why do his wants come on top of yours? My ex and I, 44 female, divorced when our daughters, Stacy, nearly adult, and Emily, teen, were young. About a year after the divorce, he passed away. My ex was paying child support, but that stopped the day he died. The girls inherited their father's estate, but it wasn't much since he was fresh into his career. As a single mother, things could have been rough, but his brother stepped into his shoes. They took the girls on weekends and bought the girls anything they needed, from clothing to school supplies, and bought our groceries. They also indulged the girls every whim. Stacy loved the horses when she was little, so Uncle John paid for her lessons and riding fees. Emily thought she wanted to play the piano, so Uncle Jeff paid for her lessons and bought her a piano. When the girls grew out of those phases and got interested in something else, their uncles were there, ready to indulge them. I tried talking to the uncles about not spoiling my girls, but they said that their nieces needed to explore their own interest, and those explorations would help their brain development. I disagreed, but I wasn't in a financial position to push too hard because they were paying so much for the girls. I was basically only responsible for the rent. I later remarried a wonderful man who brought 2 kids into the family. We have 1 more kid together, and things are good for the most part. However, kids are smart, so my daughter's step and half siblings started to notice their sisters having more experiences in things than they did. My husband didn't like the situation, and we argued about it over the years. Things came to a boiling point recently when we discussed how to pay for our 2 oldest kids' colleges. Stacy and her stepbrother Rick, 18. Both are good students, and while they haven't gotten their acceptance letters, I have no doubt that they'll get into good schools. My husband and I make enough money to live a middle-class lifestyle with 5 kids, but not enough to put them through college. The reality is that they'll have to take out school loans. We talked to them about loans, and this is when I found out that Stacy had already talked to her uncles, and they're paying her tuition and the cost of living wherever she wants to go. This floored us and made my husband extremely mad. He got red and started to scream about how it wasn't fair. Stacy and Emily would go to expensive colleges and graduate with no loans, while our other kids will have to go to state schools and take out loans. He wanted me to call John and Jeff and tell them to stop spoiling the girls. On the one hand, I agree 100% with my husband that it's not fair to my other kids, but on the other hand, I can't hold my daughters back from something so wonderful. In the end, I told my husband I would not tell my ex-brother-in-laws to stop spoiling our daughters. Was I wrong to tell him that? Not the idiot. Your daughters shouldn't miss out on their paternal relatives just because your husband and the other children might be super jealous. Those other kids have something your oldest girls don't. Their dad. You'd be a gigantic idiot if you were anything besides grateful for the generosity of your former husband's brothers towards your children. Your daughters will never ever forgive you if you sabotage their chance to graduate without debt, nor should they. That would be an incredibly cruel and spiteful thing to do to your children. And ironically, your husband's bitterness is making him short-sighted about the other kids' well-being. Having your girls' uncles assume the financial burden for their living expenses will free you up to help the other kids where you can. It's not fair. It's not fair that a grown man is having a temper tantrum. It's not fair that he's putting this on you. It's not fair that your daughter's dad is dead. But most of all, it's not fair that he sees the girls as having luxury when it's really just compensating for the loss of their father. If his kids suddenly came into some inheritance from the mother's side of the family, ask him if he would force them to share it with your girls. Everyone knows the answer here. It's not just the husband. Keep in mind that OP calls it spoiling. She's an idiot for thinking that all these years. OP, your wonderful husband, wants to hold back your daughters because he's jealous that their schooling will be paid for. That's messed up. It's also not your daughter's fault that he didn't start savings plans for his kids. That's on him. I, 29 female, have 2 kids, a young female and a toddler female. My husband works weekdays from 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And after work, he normally goes out with the boys and normally gets home around 5 or 6. Here's how my typical day looks. I wake up at 6 a.m., make coffee and read a book. Then I do laundry, make breakfast and work and school lunches. Wake my eldest at 7 a.m., get her ready for school. Wake my husband, wake my youngest, drive my daughter to school, then do the shopping, cleaning, making lunch, etc. Then I pick up my eldest from school and make dinner. I do everything every day. And when my husband gets home, he eats, watches TV, and falls asleep. I haven't had a full day to myself since my youngest was born. I really need a break from all this madness. Well, the other day my friend called and asked if I wanted to go have lunch with her, then go shopping and maybe go for a drink or two. I was extremely excited and couldn't wait to just chill for the first time in ages. So I told my husband, and he didn't seem to care that much, so I assumed it would be okay and he would watch the kids. Well, the day came, and as I was leaving, my husband stopped me and asked when the babysitter would be here. I told him there was no sitter and he'd have to watch them. He went insane on me and told me I couldn't just expect him to babysit while I go out and have a good time. He told me that unless I found someone to watch the girls, I couldn't go. We got into a huge fight and I called my sister to watch them. He's been giving me the silent treatment ever since and refusing to talk to me. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. I'm laughing at the audacity, honestly. So he gets 2 to 3 hours daily with the boys and can't give you one weekend's afternoon? Sorry, you don't have a husband. You have a boss, and he has a nanny/maid. That's not a marriage. I only have one reply here that isn't me calling your husband awful names, selfish, and a walking red flag. It's not babysitting when you're looking after your own children, moron. Man, what's with men not fathering their own kids? It sounds like you don't get to go out much, so he should be able to handle watching his own offspring from time to time without complaint. I hope you've got good support in your life, because he sounds lacking. This right here, I'd be livid, not only by calling it babysitting, but also because he refused to be a parent and spend time taking care of his own children. OP, I don't know how your relationship with your mother-in-law/in-laws and their opinions on childcare, but I'm petty enough to go to his mom and tell her how he refuses to take care of his kids for one afternoon so that I can decompress. My mother-in-law would tear my husband, her son, a new one if he ever did this to me. And my sister-in-law would be next in line to do so, waiting to get in on the action. Well, the chances are he acts this way because it's what he grew up with. OP, you absolutely deserve child-free time without guilt. Don't lose yourself because this man refuses to act like a dad. No one gets to tell you where you can and can't go. I hope things get better for you. You deserve better. My wife is currently 7 months pregnant and has had a rough pregnancy. She's also pretty emotional right now, which is to be expected. My mom's birthday's coming up, and I wanted to take her to dinner. My mom loves seafood and picked a restaurant that's about 40 minutes away. However, my wife is uncomfortable being in the car for long periods, and there isn't much on the menu she could eat, as she can't have shellfish. I explained this to my mom, and she said that my wife could stay home. I told her my wife is particularly sensitive right now, and that would make her feel bad. My mom got annoyed and asked if she had to pick something else because a grown woman couldn't be left home alone. I told her pregnancy isn't forever, and please just work with us. She said to forget it. She wants seafood, and all the good seafood restaurants are that far away. I asked her to pick another type of cuisine. She loves Mexican, and we hibachi, both of which we have local. But she yelled at me that her birthday wasn't about my wife. I accused her of being selfish and childish, and said my wife comes first, so she hung up. So now everyone is telling me that I'm an idiot, and my wife is in tears as the whole family's mad at her. You are the idiot. 40 minutes is not really a long drive, and your wife can either have fish, not shellfish, or something else, or stay home for a few hours. Usually when you're treating someone for their birthday, you do something that they want to do. Your mother's not out of line here. She could have been kinder, but you told her you were treating her to dinner, asked her to pick a restaurant, and then tried to make her change her birthday treat to suit your wife. Pregnancy's not a free pass to behave badly for either you or your wife. Pregnant women are advised not to eat shellfish, and cross-contamination is a huge issue in seafood restaurants if you can't have shellfish. Don't make it sound like a picky eater thing. OP is protecting both his wife and his unborn child here. Not the idiot, and I'm glad you're making a stand regarding your pregnant wife. I'm sorry to say that your mom sounds awful. Does she often behave like this when it comes to your wife? Agree. I had a hard pregnancy. 40 minutes in a car and another 40 back would have been literally torture at 7 months, like stabbing, constant pain and misery. No big deal. Suck it up for the birthday girl, right? Pregnancy isn't a free pass. It's a medical condition that is frequently painful and sometimes dangerous. Reasonable, empathetic people understand that. The rest whine about not going to their preferred restaurant or tell women it's not really a long drive. Why can't his mother go to the seafood restaurant with her fiancé on her birthday and go to another restaurant with OP and his wife the night before, or extend the celebration? Why must everything be a fight? If the wife were vegan, would the mom still insist on going? To me, it seems yes. I, female 32, began working from home 2 months ago. My husband bought the house we live in before we got together. He calls it his property, which is fine with me. The house is small and has only 2 rooms, one of which used to be empty till I started using it as an office for my work from home job. All was going fine with my job till he set me down last night, saying he's expecting 30% profit from whatever I get from my job, since he provides the office for my work. I was completely caught off guard by this. I asked if he was serious, and he went on about it being his home and how he could use this room for his purpose, since it's his property. I said no and called him unreasonable, which led to a blow-up. I yelled at him, saying he won't get a penny, and he pitched a fit and accused me of taking full advantage, even though there was no mortgage to be paid. I do all the chores in the house, as well as share paying the bills in half. He got his family involved in this, and they're split. His mom thinks I'm being difficult, and that 30% is not a huge amount, and that his room is providing stability for my work from home job, so my husband should get some benefits. Am I the idiot for putting my foot down and refusing to pay a penny? Not the idiot. Your husband is being unreasonable and is clearly signaling to you that the house you live in is not your home. That's not a situation I'd want to be in, personally. Does he charge you rent for the use of the bathroom and the shower? Do you charge him for intimacy? Start negotiating, OP. You don't owe hubby a thing, especially since you do all the household chores. Time to immediately stop paying bills and doing all the housework. Move into your office. If he wants to treat you like a tenant, act like one. Do not combine your money with his. Pay him the going rate of a tenancy. Start looking for a new place to live because this marriage is over. It's just a financial agreement to him. Or keep doing the chores and bill him the same amount he would charge you for the office. But seriously, he will always hold that he owns the home over your head. You'd be better off moving into a tiny, cheap bedsit or a house share and saving for your own place than paying him 50% of the bills and then an extra 30% of your wages. That he's discussing stuff with his mom isn't good either. A third of your wages is a huge amount. All the housework too? Oh, honey. Yep, he's a transactional nightmare, and it's not your home. He can kick you out tonight, and you've got nothing. He's using you, and you do all the housework? Nope, please make sure not to have a child with him. I can't imagine how much worse it'll get. Sometimes I wonder why some people get married. It breaks my heart every time a woman posts about the outlandish way her husband's trying to profit from her. And it's so obvious she has no support system to rely on. The more enmeshed you get with this guy, the harder it'll be to leave. OP, take this as the pace car now and just leave him. This isn't how loving relationships are supposed to be. Oh my God, girl, just go. Divorce him and take half the house. See if he thinks that's fair. For some background, my 25 female mother is not good at teaching others. My mother gave me a very bad learning experience. Whether it was schoolwork, driving, or cooking, she got unnecessarily angry when I made a mistake and would call me stupid whenever I asked a question. I got good on my own with schoolwork, and my dad taught me how to drive. On the other hand, with cooking, I only had my mom to teach me. This caused me to be very nervous in the kitchen, and I could only cook basic foods. She did admit she had a problem later on, but part of me still resents her because that didn't really erase all the times I had to sit there and hold back tears as she berated me. When I was about 20, I started dating this guy who loved to cook. It was through him that I learned to cook. Since he was Japanese, most of the food I learned to cook was Japanese food, and I was completely fine with that. Recently, my mom had an accident that led to her breaking her arm, so I moved back home for a bit to help her around the house. One of the things I do is cook, and I've been making a lot of Japanese food because that's what I'm most comfortable with. One day while eating, my mother said she was tired of Japanese and wanted to know why I always cooked it while I was there. I told her since my fiance taught me everything I know about cooking, Japanese food is what I'm used to. She gave me a hurt look and said, I know I wasn't the best, but I still did a lot to help you learn. I said, yes, I know, but I wouldn't be able to cook a full meal if it wasn't for him. My mom got up from the table and went to her room. My dad said that was a bit cruel and I needed to apologize. I don't think I need to because I was only telling the truth. While she did teach me the basics, because of her I was very anxious in the kitchen and couldn't do much. My fiance said I wasn't completely in the wrong, but I should apologize to keep the peace. I need some other opinions on if I was wrong. Edit. Since my job is primarily working from home, I'm free to help out. Not the idiot, but mostly. Recently, my mom had an accident that led to her breaking her arm, so I moved back home for a bit to help around the house. Not gonna lie, this is ridiculous. One broken arm isn't anything, and your dad's there for goodness sake. And OP's dad dares to criticize when he's right there? If they don't want Japanese food, then your dad can cook. I assume his arm isn't broken. The moving back is a massive overreaction to mom's broken arm. OP should just make food and drop it off at their house. I don't think these parents are worth anything, considering her mom's outright abusive behavior and her dad's enabling that behavior. Why are your mom's feelings hurt? Loss of pride or a crushed ego? Honey, leave. You're not a slave. Your parents are asking for a lot of emotional coddling on top of the help you kindly give them. You have a job. Working from home doesn't mean you're free to help 24/7. She's hurt because she didn't teach you enough to cook? Wow. It's not your job to pretend she did something she didn't to make her feel better. My 22 female brother, nearly adult, was an affair baby. What ended up happening was the following. My dad remarried another woman and gained a stepdaughter, nearly adult, who he treats like his own. My mother remarried another man and had my half-sisters, teen and young teen. My brother's father's not in his life. As a kid, I spent equal time with both parents, but my brother was always with my mom. From what I know, my brother doesn't call anyone dad. This is something that really affects him. He always wanted a dad and one of those happy little families, and I recently found his letters to Santa from when he was younger, and I'm absolutely heartbroken. It's something I now feel very strongly about. Because my mom works a lot, no one ever shows up to my brother's games. He doesn't really care, or at least he acts like he doesn't. Well, my boyfriend and I decided to go to every one of his games and have been going to every game since last year. He always gets really happy. He even jokingly calls us his parents as we sit with all the other parents. This is something I only do for him. My brother had his final volleyball game near the end of the month, and like always, I was going. However, as I was about to leave, my mom said she needed to talk. 10 minutes later, my dad showed up. They usually cannot stand each other, so I thought it was something serious. They just told me it's nice that I go to all my brother's games, but my sisters on both sides feel left out, and I should try to go to their things too. My nearly adult sister had a dance rehearsal event on the same day, and they told me they wanted me to go to that instead to prove that I was not playing favorites. They also said that they wanted my boyfriend to go as well. I said no. They kept begging though, and my mom told me that my other sisters had something coming up as well. I said no. Unless it's a major game or recital, I won't attend. I'm already very busy and only do this for my brother because unlike my sisters, he has no one. My parents said that that was unfair to the girls because they deserve to have an older sister. They both also agree that it's weird my boyfriend and I act like his parents. I just told them that sucks, but I have a game to get to. They're both still mad at me. I haven't been allowed in either house since that day and until I promised to commit to the girls as well, but I keep refusing. My mom's called me mean, selfish, etc., and my dad keeps saying that he never expected this from me. I don't know. Am I the idiot for refusing to do the same for my sisters? I just want my brother to have one thing. He never gets anything. But maybe I'm the idiot for doing this at the expense of my sisters. Edit. It's my mom who cheated, actually. A few years ago, my brother unconsciously started calling my stepdad Dad, but he was all like, "This is weird. I don't want another man's child calling me Dad." So my mom made him stop. It made me see them in a very different light when I found out about this. They weren't even ashamed. They simply do not care. Like, I was helping her clean out the basement, and there were 3 boxes of my brother's childhood stuff, and half of it was just drawings of me, my brother, our mom, and what seemed to be his dad. When I showed them to my mom, she was more upset that he didn't draw out our sisters or his stepdad. We also found the letters to Santa there, and I started crying reading them, and all my mom did was crack a joke about his handwriting. Like, what the heck? My brother's living with my boyfriend and me. He already has a room and stays with us during the weekends and breaks. Not the idiot. Just reply, "It's not fair that mom slept with a random guy, and now I have to parent my half-brother." You are an amazing big sister. Furthermore, it sounds like there isn't even bad blood between you and your sisters. Like, clearly he needs this more than they ever could. How awful of them to say it's weird for you and your boyfriend to act like his parents. Maybe if his birth mother acted like a parent to him, you wouldn't have to. Instead, mom is borderline neglecting him. You are the best sister he could ask for. You and boyfriend are awesome for taking your brother in. I'm glad someone is in his corner, though your mom is horrible. Sorry, not sorry. This makes me so relieved. And honestly, this alone makes it completely normal to attend all of his events and not the other siblings. They have their lives while you guys have your own. Wow, just wow. Your mother and stepdad are huge idiots. Your mom holds her mistakes against your brother. Honestly, it doesn't sound like she loves him. I wonder how she'd respond if she was asked if she did. This woman has made your brother the scapegoat for her selfish actions. I can't with people like this. When you can, please get your brother into counseling. This is messing him up more than he's letting on. My wife and I recently had to move in with my mom, along with our young toddler son. My mom has made it very clear that we're ruining her life, and she hates having us here. I know in many families, adult children moving in is normal, but in this situation, she's clearly doing us a favor and is angry about it. I've been having a hard time setting boundaries with my mom because her answer is if we don't like it, we can leave. And to be honest, that sounds fair. Don't get me wrong, I still say something when she's rude to my wife. But as for real boundaries and consequences, I just don't have any leverage. My wife has been on me lately about how I need to do more to set boundaries. One thing my mom does that my wife hates is using the word which in place of you in a sentence. Previously, I set a boundary that if my mom called either of us a witch, we would leave and not visit for X amount of time. But now that we live here, she laughs and tells me to please go. So my hands quite literally are tied. Well, tonight my mom came down to go to a work Christmas party, and my mother-in-law, who was visiting, commented about how our outfit would get her fired. My mom said, "Which I'm the boss, no one can fire me." My wife gave me a look, but I just shrugged because I felt mother-in-law was rude. My wife spoke up and said that I was a coward and that she was going to remind my mom of our boundary, and we were sick of how she used that word. My mom then looked at my wife and said, "Okay, I'll say something worse next time, dumb witch." I was in shock and yelled at her to shut the heck up and told her I hated her. She left for her party and I thought it was over, but my wife and mother-in-law both began telling me how I need to set consequences for my mom and how it shouldn't be so easy for her to insult my wife. I responded that we lost our right to set boundaries when we moved into her house. I don't like it either, but she owns our lives, and I'm not going to make a fool of myself and come off as some choosy beggar. I said for now she really can say what she wants. Mother-in-law muttered something under her breath, and my wife began to scream at me. My wife is currently not speaking to me and says I can't come into our room tonight. She called me weak and told me to crawl in bed with my mom, which honestly hurt because my mom has multiple locks on her door as she doesn't trust us. So am I the idiot for telling my wife I can't enforce boundaries with my mom? Not the idiot. At least you realize you're two broke adults with a child living with your mother, and your mother has made it abundantly clear, if you don't like it, move out. If your wife wants boundaries, she needs to move out. And your wife can't tell anyone where they can go in a home she's squatting in because she's a broke adult with a child living with her mother-in-law. So let that sink in. You're two broke adults without many options. Your wife needs to understand she doesn't have squat or a window to throw it out of. She does not have the upper hand or moral high ground. This is a great summation of the situation. Mother-in-law doesn't want you there, but she didn't throw you out in the street. So shut up and be grateful you have a roof over your head. And adult up and get your act together so you can take care of yourselves in your own home. Then you get to set boundaries. Until then, suck it up if you want to continue to have a roof over your head. This exactly. Just what boundaries does your wife want to be enforced? Like what consequences is she going to make her mother-in-law face in her own home? Ask her what specifically she'd like, and how exactly does she think that can get your mom to agree to what she wants. My grandmother used to say, when your hand is in a lion's mouth, you draw it out carefully. Your mom doesn't want you living there, and your mother-in-law's husband said he'd divorce her if you moved in with them. What's wrong with you and your wife that no one wants you living with them? Everyone's the idiot here. I don't know how you ended up so broke that living with the most obnoxious, toxic witch I've ever heard of in a long time is your only alternative. Go find a family homeless shelter, a church outreach. Literally nearly anything would be better than staying in this hellhole you brought your family to. Between all of you, I honestly fear for your child because I don't see how any baby can grow up sane in this collection. I, 23, just completed my degree this year. My grandparents paid for my education, the same as they did for all their grandchildren and children, except my cousin. She's 10 years older than me, and my grandparents cut off her funding after she came out as bi. She managed to complete her degree by taking out loans, but she still had to pay for 3 university years on her own. I saw how much it sucks for her to miss out on stuff because of her student debt. I knew when I was 13 that I was gay. I also knew what would happen to me with my family the minute I came out, so I didn't. I concentrated on school. I kept to myself. I'm an introvert, so it was relatively simple. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't celibate during university, but I also didn't advertise my orientation. Friends of my family and one of my cousins was attending the same school at the same time. My family did recently find out that I'm gay. I was outed to them by someone I trusted, but it's too late for them to screw me over. I have my diploma and I live in a different city. But strangely enough, I am getting crap from both sides. My family all think I'm an idiot for lying to my grandparents to steal an education. And some of my friends think I was wrong to not be out and allow them to think I was as homophobic as they were. My lesbian cousin is the only person from my family who thinks I did the right thing. She says if she had it to do over, she would lie to those decrepit homophobes. Her words, not mine. My grandparents won't talk to me. My dad sent me an email saying that since I lied, I should pay them back the money. That's not going to happen. I feel bad for lying, but I feel great about my start in life. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. What did you lie about? Who discusses their intimate life with grandma? Keeping your intimate life private is not lying. I wouldn't pay them back either. You didn't steal your diploma. You studied hard and you graduated. You might not get an inheritance, but you were fortunate enough to graduate without debt. And OP, they are just angry that they lost out on an opportunity to weaponize their money. So now they have nothing to use against you, nothing to withhold or to punish you with, and nothing to force you to be the way they want you to be. So now they're stewing about it. Familial love shouldn't be conditional like this.